It was late evening when Dr. Alana Brooks walked down the silent hallway of the private hospital's ICU. The white floors reflected the soft ceiling lights, and every step she took echoed like whispers. Most of the rooms were quiet, machines beeping, gently reminding her that some patients were still fighting, still holding on, even if no one could see it. She stopped at room 307. A nameplate read Vivian Harrow, but no one called her by name anymore. She had been in a coma for 6 months. People in the hospital now referred to her as the sleeping millionaire. Some believed she would never wake up again, but Alana didn't agree. Alana pushed the glass door open, walked in quietly, and closed it behind her. The room was warm and smelled faintly of flowers. Someone had placed fresh white lily in a vase near the window. The woman in the bed looked peaceful, but there was something sad about her face. Her skin was pale, her lips dry, but her hair was neatly brushed. Her hands rested gently by her sides, covered in soft cream-colored blankets. Alana walked to the bedside and took a deep breath. "Hi again, Vivian," she whispered. "It's me, Alana." She had been assigned to Vivian's care a few weeks ago, but from the first day, something had pulled her in. She didn't know what it was. Maybe the way Vivian looked so lonely, even in sleep. Or maybe it was the silence that filled the room like an unanswered question. Either way, Alana had started talking to her every shift, just in case she could hear. "I brought a new moisturizer," Alana said softly, taking a small jar from her coat pocket. She opened it, dipped her fingers in, and gently rubbed it into Vivian's hands. They felt cold, thinner than they should. Alana worked slowly, carefully, like she was taking care of someone very precious. Other nurses came in and out during their shifts, checked the machines, updated charts, and left. But Alana always stayed a little longer. She would talk to Vivian about her own life, how hard it was to be one of the youngest doctors in the hospital, how her family didn't fully understand what she did, how she sometimes felt invisible among older, more powerful doctors. One evening, after a long and tiring shift, Alana sat down next to Vivian's bed and rested her head on the mattress. "You know," she whispered, "people think you're not coming back." Her voice cracked slightly. "But I think maybe you're just waiting for the right time." The room was so still. The only sound was the soft humming of machines. Then something happened, something small, something quick, but Alana saw it. She sat up fast, her heart racing. One of Vivian's fingers had moved, just a twitch. "Vivian?" she gasped, leaning in. "Did you move?" She stared at the hand, afraid to even blink. But nothing happened again. No one else was in the room to see it. She pressed the nurse call button, and a few moments later, a tired-looking nurse walked in. "I think she moved her finger," Alana said, her voice full of hope. The nurse checked the monitors, glanced at Vivian's still face, then shook her head. "Probably just a muscle spasm," she said. "It happens sometimes." "But it looked—" "Dr. Brooks," the nurse interrupted. "If something changes, the machines will tell us." Then she left, closing the door. Behind her, Alana stared at Vivian's hand again, still unsure if she had imagined it, but her heart told her it was real. That small movement meant something. Even if no one believed it, she did. She finished her tasks quietly, brushing Vivian's hair gently, adjusting the blanket, and making sure the IV was stable. Before leaving, she paused at the door, looked back and whispered, "If you're in there, keep fighting, okay?" That night, Alana couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the finger twitch, replaying it in her mind again and again. It wasn't just a reflex, it couldn't be. She had seen something in that moment, a flicker of life, a whisper of hope. The next day, she returned earlier than usual. She brought a soft blanket from home, thinking Vivian might like it better than the hospital one. She even brought a book to read aloud, hoping the sound of a human voice would somehow pull Vivian closer to the surface. Each day passed slowly, but Alana's belief never faded. She kept coming back, kept talking, kept hoping, even when others rolled their eyes or called her too emotional. She didn't stop to her. Vivian wasn't just a patient, she was a woman with a story that hadn't ended yet. And Alana was going to be there when the next chapter began. And somewhere in the stillness, behind closed eyelids, something inside Vivian Harrow stirred, not ready to give up just yet. The early morning light spilled through the wide hospital windows as Alana returned to room 307. Her eyes were tired, but her mind was sharp. She hadn't stopped thinking about what she saw, the tiny movement of Vivian's finger. It was quick. Almost nothing, but it had burned itself into Alana's memory like fire on cold skin. She stood at the doorway for a moment, just watching. Vivian lay exactly as she had the day before, still, quiet, a figure frozen in time. Alana stepped closer, her shoes soft on the floor. She gently touched Vivian's hand, no movement, but the skin was a little warmer today. Or maybe that was just her imagination again. Alana pulled the chair closer and sat down beside her. She took a small book from her bag, something light and simple. A collection of stories she used to read as a child. She opened it and began to read. Her voice low and calm, not rushing, not loud, just enough to fill the space between silence and sound. She read for 15 minutes, then closed the book and set it aside. "If you can hear me," she whispered. "Blink once." Nothing happened. Or maybe just move a finger again, she added, still hopeful. The machines continued their soft, steady beeps. She leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. "You know, I'm not really supposed to be here this long," she said. "They don't think I'm being professional. They don't say it out loud. But I see the looks." Alana smiled a little. "But I don't care. I feel like you're trying to come back. And someone needs to be here when you do." She stood up, fixed the blanket around Vivian's legs, then paused. Her fingers froze. Mid-air, Vivian's lips had moved, just slightly, like a whisper forming without sound. Alana leaned in, barely breathing. "Vivian?" She said softly. "It's me, Alana. I'm right here." A faint sound came from the bed, so weak it could be mistaken for the air vent. But Alana heard it clearly, one word. Dry and cracked like a leaf breaking underfoot. "Water?" Alana gasped. And grabbed the bedside button. She pressed it quickly, heart pounding. She spoke. She said when the nurse arrived. She asked for water. The nurse looked at her like she was imagining things. "Are you sure?" she asked, walking over to the monitors. "Everything looks normal. No change in brain activity." "I heard her," Alana said, her voice firm. She said water, I swear. The nurse hesitated, then shook her head. "Coma patients sometimes make sounds, Dr. Brooks. The brain can fire off random signals. It doesn't mean she's conscious." "She's trying to come back," Alana said, almost pleading. "She's not just random noise." The nurse left, unconvinced. Alana stood there, frustrated, feeling helpless. But she refused to give up. She took a small sponge from the drawer, dipped it in cool water, and gently touched Vivian's lips. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. "You're not alone." For the next few hours, Alana stayed by her side. She watched every twitch, every slight breath, every flicker in her eyelashes. Vivian's body didn't move again, but her face seemed softer now, not frozen like before. Alana believed that something had changed, something real, by the time her shift ended. She didn't want to leave, but rules were rules. As she stepped out, she saw Dr. Halden, the chief neurologist, walking past. She hurried after him. "Dr. Halden, can I talk to you about Vivian Harrow?" she asked. He raised an eyebrow. "The coma patient?" He said, "What is it?" "She moved yesterday," Alana explained quickly. "And today, I heard her say something, just one word, water." Halden looked unimpressed. "That patient has been non-responsive for half a year, Dr. Brooks. We've done every test, every scan. There's nothing to suggest she's waking up. But what if she is?" Alana insisted. "What if we're wrong?" Halden sighed. "Hope is a good thing, but don't let it blind you. If something changes on the machines, we'll know. Until then, just monitor and document." Alana watched him walk away, her hands clenched at her sides. She didn't have proof, not the kind they wanted, but she had something stronger. She had instinct. She had a feeling in her heart she couldn't ignore. That night, she didn't go home. She stayed in the staff lounge, resting with her coat rolled up under her head. When morning came, she returned to Vivian's room, opened the door slowly, and stepped inside. Vivian's eyes were closed, her face calm. Alana moved to the bed and whispered, "Hey." "I'm back, then, just for a moment, just long enough to be sure." She saw something she would never forget. Vivian's eyelids fluttered open for a single second, and her tired eyes looked straight into Alana's. It was real. She was waking up. Alana stood frozen beside the bed, her heart thudding so loud it felt like it filled the room. For a split second, she had seen it. Vivian's eyes had opened. Not wide, not for long, but they had opened, and they had looked straight at her. There was no doubt in her mind, no imagination, no mistake. It was real. She leaned in close, afraid to even blink. "Vivian?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "Can you hear me?" "Try again, please." Vivian's eyes stayed closed, her chest rising and falling slowly under the soft blanket. The machines continued their usual rhythm. Nothing unusual flashed on the screens. No alarms, no spikes, just steady, calm silence. But to Alana, everything had changed. She stayed there for minutes, maybe hours, whispering gently, holding Vivian's hand, watching every breath. But there was no second flicker, no more movement. Still, the moment had happened, and she would never forget it. Later that morning, she went straight to her notebook and wrote down every detail, the exact time, what she saw, how Vivian looked, how long it lasted. She made it official. She included it in her daily patient report, knowing the others might still ignore it, and she was right. When she brought it up in the staff meeting, the other doctors looked at her like she was a hopeful child. Dr. Halden didn't even raise his eyes from his clipboard. "Without proof from the monitors," he said. "It's not a verified response." "But she looked at me," Alana said. "I saw it. I felt it. Feeling isn't enough in medicine." "Dr. Brooks," he replied. "We work with data, not guesses." The conversation ended there, but inside her, Alana felt something else, a quiet fire starting to grow. If they weren't going to believe her, she would just have to prove them wrong. That night, after her shift, she stayed late again. She brought a small voice recorder from home and placed it gently near Vivian's pillow. She didn't care if it was against protocol. This wasn't about rules anymore. This was about a woman waking up alone and no one noticing except her. She sat beside Vivian again, brushing her fingers softly through the woman's hair. "I don't know who you were before this," she whispered, "but I believe you're still in there, trying to come back. And I'm going to help you, no matter what." She began telling Vivian about her own past, not as a doctor, but as a girl. She told her about growing up in a small town, where being smart made her a target, where people laughed at the idea of a black girl becoming a doctor. She told her how she had to fight to earn respect in every hospital she walked into. How even now, some doctors looked at her like she didn't belong. She paused, wiping her eyes quickly. "But when I come here and I see you, I don't feel alone," she said. "I think you're just like me, fighting to be heard, even when no one listens." And then it happened again. A soft sound, barely more than breath, came from Vivian's mouth. Alana leaned in close, holding her own breath. And then, the softest, weakest word broke the silence. "Why?" Alana's hands trembled, her eyes widened. She stared at Vivian's face, and for the first time, she saw something completely different. Vivian's brow had furrowed, and tears gathered at the corners of her closed eyes. "Why what?" Alana asked quickly. "Why are you here? Why did this happen?" "Vivian, talk to me. I'm right here." But no more words came. Only a quiet sigh as Vivian slipped back into deep stillness. Alana rushed to check the voice recorder. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons, but when she played it back, the tiny whisper was there, the word "why," faint and ghostly, but real. She had proof. The next day, Alana brought the recording straight to the hospital board. She played it for them in a small meeting room. Doctors, nurses, and administrators sat around the table as the whisper echoed from the speakers. Some blinked in shock. Others exchanged glances. Dr. Halden listened silently, but said nothing at first. "This is the second time she's responded," Alana said firmly. "This isn't a coincidence. This is consciousness trying to return." After a long pause, Halden nodded slowly. "It's interesting," he said. "We'll assign a neuromonitoring specialist to observe further. But Dr. Brooks, do not overstep again. You could have been removed for unauthorized recording." Alana didn't care about the warning. All that mattered was that someone had finally listened. Vivian had spoken, and someone had finally heard her. The door to hope was no longer locked that night. As she stood beside Vivian again, she held her hand tighter. "They know now," she said with a smile. "They're watching. They believe a little bit now, just like I do." And though Vivian didn't move, didn't whisper, Alana swore she saw something new on her face, just the tiniest sign, the beginning of a smile. Days passed and things slowly changed, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in quiet ones. A new specialist was assigned to Vivian's case. Her room now had more advanced brain monitoring equipment. The staff came in more often, and they no longer ignored Alana when she gave updates. Something was happening, and now the hospital couldn't pretend otherwise. Vivian hadn't spoken again since that whisper, but her eyelids fluttered sometimes. Her fingers twitched more often, and there was even one moment when she gripped Alana's hand gently before letting go. Small signs, but powerful ones. They meant one thing: Vivian was trying to come back. One night, after a long shift, Alana entered Vivian's room and paused. She wasn't alone. A man in a dark, expensive suit stood near the bed, looking down at Vivian silently. He didn't notice her at first, and Alana stood quietly watching him. He was tall, with silver hair slicked back, a sharp jawline, and a heavy coat that didn't belong in the warm hospital. When he finally turned, his eyes locked with Alana's, and something about his look made her uneasy. "I'm Dr. Brooks," she said, stepping forward. "And you are?" He smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Old friend of the family," he replied calmly. "Just visiting while she sleeps." Alana glanced at the visitor log by the door. His name wasn't on it. He hadn't signed in. She felt her chest tighten. "I'm sorry, sir, but all visitors must be approved and logged." He waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, rules, rules. We've known each other for years. I helped fund the research grants that built this wing. Surely you can overlook a signature." Alana didn't move. "Sir, I'll need to see your ID." He looked at her a moment longer, then turned back to Vivian, his voice quiet and cold. "You always made such dramatic entrances." "Viv," he said, "even in sleep you draw attention." Then without another word, he left the room, walking past Alana like she was invisible. She followed him out, but by the time she reached the hallway, he was gone. No sound of the elevator, no sign of footsteps, just empty silence. She ran to the front desk and asked if anyone had seen the man, but the staff hadn't. He hadn't passed the main entrance. He'd simply vanished. Something about it didn't sit right. And that night, for the first time, Alana decided to dig deeper. She opened her laptop and began searching for everything she could about Vivian Harrow. There were many articles, donations, speeches, photographs with politicians and celebrities. She had been powerful, admired, and generous, but there were rumors too, whispers about a lawsuit, a helicopter crash that wasn't fully investigated, a company boardroom full of people who didn't want Vivian alive anymore. Alana's eyes narrowed as she clicked on an old business report. One name popped up more than once: Malcolm Reese, Vivian's former business partner. She searched the hospital's donation records, and there it was. Malcolm Reese had funded part of the hospital's East Wing 5 years ago. He wasn't just a visitor. He was a man with influence, a man with access, and maybe, just maybe, a man with a reason to keep Vivian silent forever. Alana leaned back in her chair, the pieces clicking into place. She didn't know everything yet, But she knew one thing clearly: Vivian had enemies, and someone didn't want her to wake up. The next day, she returned to Vivian's room early. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the halls were quiet. She placed a tiny hidden camera in a flower vase. Just in case the man returned. It was against hospital policy, but Alana had stopped caring about rules a long time ago. She sat by Vivian's side and whispered, "Someone was here last night. Someone who doesn't want you to wake up." Vivian's fingers twitched again. Alana leaned closer, her voice shaking. "If you can hear me, we're not safe. But I'll protect you, I promise." For a brief second, Vivian's lips moved, not enough to form words, but enough to send a chill down Alana's spine. She held her hand tightly. "Don't give up now," she whispered. "We're almost there." That night, as the hospital slept, the silent camera watched over room 307, waiting to catch a ghost in a suit, and a young doctor stayed awake with fear in her heart and fire in her eyes, determined to uncover the truth behind the woman who wouldn't wake up. The hospital lights glowed dim in the early hours. Outside, the world was still dark. Inside room 307, the hidden camera silently recorded, its small red light blinking behind the flowers. Alana had barely slept, her heart full of worry and her mind spinning with questions. She returned before sunrise, nervous but focused. She checked the camera, fast-forwarded the footage, and her breath caught in her chest. At 3:11 a.m., the man had returned, the same expensive suit, the same cold eyes. He had entered without logging in, stood beside Vivian, and leaned in to whisper something in her ear. The camera didn't catch the words, but his expression was clear, serious, almost threatening. Alana copied the footage to her phone and deleted the original from the camera. She didn't know whom she could trust, but she knew she had to be careful now. This was bigger than she thought. Vivian wasn't just a sleeping patient. She was a woman with secrets, and someone was scared she might reveal them. She rushed to the head nurse's station, her voice low but urgent. "Do we have a security log for last night?" she asked. "Any staff who used override access after midnight?" The nurse looked surprised. "No reports," she said. "Why?" Alana didn't answer. She didn't want to make noise, not yet, not until she had more. Back in Vivian's room, she sat quietly, holding the woman's hand. "You need to wake up," she whispered. "Whatever happened to you? Someone's trying to keep it buried, but I won't let them." Vivian's eyelids fluttered again, this time staying open for several seconds. Alana gasped. "Vivian, can you hear me?" she asked, trying to stay calm but trembling inside. Vivian's eyes moved slowly, like someone waking from a long dream. She looked confused, her gaze shifting around the room, then settling on Alana's face. Her lips parted, dry and pale, and a broken whisper came through. "You stayed." Tears filled Alana's eyes. She smiled and squeezed Vivian's hand. "Yes, I stayed," she said softly. "You've been asleep for months, but I knew you were still fighting." Vivian blinked slowly, as if trying to remember something heavy. Her voice came again, weak and cracked. "Is he still here?" Alana leaned closer. "Who?" she asked gently. "The man," Vivian whispered. "The crash wasn't an accident." Alana's body went cold. This wasn't just recovery, it was confession. Vivian remembered something. "Dangerous. You're safe now," Alana said. "But you need to get stronger. Can you tell me more?" Vivian tried, but her body was weak and her breath slowed. A monitor beeped faster, and a nurse rushed in, calling for support. Alana stepped back as the team began checking vitals and giving fluids. One doctor tried to block her view, but she stayed close, watching Vivian's eyes stay open the whole time. Later that evening, once Vivian was stable again, Alana sat in the hospital cafe, her thoughts spinning like a storm. She played the camera footage again, the man's face crystal clear in the frame. She took a screenshot and searched his image online. Within minutes, the name popped up, Malcolm Reese, just like she suspected. Business tycoon, former partner of Vivian Harrow. involved in a court battle over her company shares right before the crash. The articles were old, and the court had dismissed the case when Vivian fell into a coma. Reese had gone quiet since then. He'd disappeared from the spotlight until now. Alana now understood why Vivian had whispered with fear that man had something to lose if she recovered. Maybe even everything, and now that she was waking up, he had returned not to welcome her back, but to keep her quiet. Alana went to the hospital director's office and knocked on the door. She told him everything, the recording, the footage, the whispered warning. She showed the photo, the logbook with no name, and even the news clippings. But he stared at her for a long time without speaking, then said something that chilled her to the bone. "You need to be very careful, Dr. Brooks. This hospital is not immune to pressure. Reese has connections, money, power. If you push this too far, you could lose your license. Or worse." Alana left the office with fire in her chest and fear in her throat. They weren't going to help. She was on her own now. But that was fine. She had come this far already. She stepped back into room 307, sat beside Vivian once more, and whispered, "They won't protect you, but I will. You trusted me when you had nothing. I won't let him hurt you again." Vivian turned her head slightly toward her voice. Her eyes filled with silent pain, and for the first time, she gave the faintest nod. The news spread faster than Alana expected. Whispers filled the halls. Doctors leaned in to speak quietly to each other. Nurses watched her with curious eyes. Vivian Harrow was awake, and Dr. Alana Brooks was the one who brought her back. Some celebrated her dedication, others didn't look so happy, especially the higher-ups. Vivian couldn't speak much, but her eyes followed Alana whenever she entered. Her hand, still weak, would lift just slightly when Alana sat beside her. The bond between them was no longer quiet or hidden. Everyone saw it now. And everyone wanted something from it. Within 2 days, reporters were calling the hospital, asking for interviews. Headlines popped up online. "Sleeping millionaire awakens. Young doctor brings back philanthropist." Cameras flashed. Outside the building, security was doubled, and patients were being moved to quieter wings to keep things calm. Alana didn't care about the cameras, she cared about Vivian. But even that started to feel difficult, because now she wasn't alone in the room anymore. The hospital had assigned a rotating team of doctors, media liaisons, and administrators to manage Vivian's case. Alana, the one who had stayed all those months, was quietly being pushed aside. She watched from the back of the room as strangers in suits asked Vivian questions she was too weak to answer. Some stood too close, some pretended to care, but their eyes only searched for headlines and stories to sell. Alana clenched her fists, but said nothing, waiting for a quiet moment. Finally, that moment came. Vivian gestured for Alana with a slow, weak hand. Alana stepped forward quickly, kneeling beside her. "I'm here," she whispered. Vivian's voice was faint but steady. "You believe me, don't you?" "I do," Alana said without hesitation. "I believe everything. I believe someone tried to silence you, and they're scared you're back." Vivian nodded slightly. "They don't want the truth about the crash." Alana leaned in closer. "Then we'll tell it, together, but you need to rest. Get stronger, one step at a time." Vivian closed her eyes for a moment, her breathing calm but heavy. Alana could feel the weight of the world in that room, not just the pressure from media, but something darker. She could sense eyes watching her even when she turned her back. Later that night, a nurse slipped her a folded note while pretending to hand over a patient report. "From room 310, the nurse whispered quickly, then walked away. Alana opened the note and read the messy handwriting. "Be careful. They erased a file from the system this morning. Vivian's crash report. It's gone, not archived, deleted. Someone's covering something. I trust you." Alana stared at the paper, her heart racing. She knew this wasn't paranoia anymore. Someone inside the hospital was working with Reese. Someone had access to private files, someone powerful. She rushed to the old hospital servers in the records department, hoping to find backup data. An older tech assistant named Mark helped her search the archives. He had been working there for over 15 years and owed Alana a favor for helping his niece get free treatment last year. "I found something strange," Mark whispered, pointing at the screen. "Look at this." Vivian's original file was accessed at 2:58 a.m. the night before she woke up. Then it was erased at 3:12 a.m. That's a 14-minute gap. Alana's blood went cold. That's the same night Reese came to her room. She copied the digital log onto a USB and locked it inside her desk drawer back in the ICU. Then she returned to Vivian's room, her steps faster, her breathing tight. When she entered, Vivian was awake again, her eyes calm, watching her. "I think we have enough to prove someone tried to erase what happened," Alana said softly. "You just need to stay alive long enough to speak for yourself." Vivian slowly reached out and grabbed Alana's hand. Her fingers were thin and shaking, but they held on with surprising strength. "I want to live," she whispered. "I want them to know I'm not done yet." Alana smiled, holding back tears. "Then we'll make sure the whole world hears your voice." But outside room 307, someone else was listening too. A man in a gray coat stood at the far end of the hallway, phone in hand. He watched Alana closely, then spoke quietly into the receiver. "She's getting too close. What do you want me to do?" The voice on the other end replied coldly, and the man nodded, slipping the phone into his coat and disappearing into the shadows. Inside, Alana stood beside Vivian, unaware of the danger building just beyond the walls, unaware that the real fight was only beginning. The morning air was quiet, too quiet. As Alana walked through the hospital's halls, she could feel it in her bones something was wrong. Staff who normally greeted her now avoided eye contact. Conversations stopped when she passed, even her. Patient logs had been moved from the digital system to paper, like someone was cutting her off piece by piece. When she entered room 307, she noticed it immediately. Vivian's vitals monitor had been unplugged, and her IV drip was nearly empty. Her blanket had been pulled halfway off, and the small notebook where Alana kept her private notes was missing from the drawer. She rushed forward, gently shaking Vivian's arm. "Vivian," she whispered, "can you hear me?" Vivian stirred weakly, her eyes opening just a little. "Cold," she whispered, her voice barely there. "So cold." Alana grabbed a warm blanket and wrapped it around her. She hit the call button and waited. But no one came. After 2 minutes, she ran to the hallway and called out, "I need help in room 307 now." A nurse came slowly, too slowly, and her face didn't show urgency. Alana looked at her with sharp eyes. "Why is her monitor off? Who removed her chart?" "I don't know, doctor," the nurse replied, eyes blank. "Orders didn't come from me." Alana narrowed her eyes. "Then find out who gave them now." As the nurse walked off, Alana returned to Vivian's side. "They're trying to weaken you again," she said softly. "But I'm not going to let them win." Vivian blinked once, slowly, and her lips formed a word without sound. Alana leaned in close, and Vivian whispered, "They're scared." "Scared of what I'll say." "I know," Alana said, her voice calm but trembling inside. "And that means you have power now. We just need to get your story out before they shut everything down." Later that evening, Alana made a choice she knew would cost her. She called a journalist she trusted, a woman named Eva James. Ava had reported on health scandals before, and she wasn't afraid of rich people with lawyers. Alana gave her everything: the photo of Reese, the deleted file logs, the recording of Vivian's weak voice saying "why," and the silent camera footage. "If anything happens to me," Alana said into the phone, "you publish it all." Ava replied with a steady voice, "I will, you have my word." That night, Alana returned to the hospital and stayed in Vivian's room. She didn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching shadows move in the hallway. At 2:46 a.m., the camera light blinked. Someone was trying to enter the room. Alana stepped into the hallway silently and saw the same man from before: the gray coat, the slick hair, the eyes that looked through her like glass. He stopped when he saw her standing there, blocking the door. "You shouldn't be here," she said firmly, her voice low but strong. He smiled slightly. "Neither should you. I know what you did," she continued. "And I've sent the truth to someone who's not scared of you. If you touch her again, it won't stay a secret anymore." His smile vanished, replaced by something colder, more dangerous. "You don't know what you're doing, Dr. Brooks," he said. "Some things are bigger than you." "Maybe," she replied, "but truth doesn't care how big you are." He turned and walked away, his footsteps slow, measured, and cruel. She didn't follow, but she made sure he left the building. The next morning, everything changed. Eva James published the story with headlines across news sites. Coma. Patient was target of corporate sabotage. Doctor risks career to protect sleeping philanthropist. Vivian Harrow's name was on every screen. And so was Alana's. Media flooded the hospital again. But this time with purpose. The hospital board was forced to open an internal investigation. Malcolm Reese denied everything, but the evidence was clear, and the court ordered Vivian's crash case reopened. Alana stood by Vivian's bed as the sunlight filled the room. "They tried to erase you," she whispered. "But now the world knows you're alive, and what happened to you wasn't an accident." Vivian's eyes were wide open now, brighter than they'd ever been. She looked stronger, more aware. She squeezed Alana's hand and said clearly for the first time, "Thank you for not letting me disappear." Tears rolled down Alana's face. "You saved yourself," she replied. "I just refused to let them bury the truth." But even as they stood in that moment of victory, Alana knew it wasn't the end. Powerful people don't vanish without trying to strike back, and in the distance, somewhere beyond the hospital walls, another plan was already being written, but so was the final chapter.